How's it going, Jeff?
Hey, how we doing?
Not too bad.
All right.
So we got Jeff Risdon on, managing editor for BrownsWire and LionsWire, and NFL draft writer at The Real GM. Jeff, obviously it's been about a year since we've had you on again, so it's good to have you back. You and I share a love for hard rock and heavy metal. So when you first heard Dan Campbell's press conference with legendary bits about biting kneecaps, what song was going off in your head?
Oh man, there was a lot of just probably something off Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power. Maybe Wake Up Dead from Megadeth, which is a personal favorite of mine. I just enjoyed that. Little Run to the Hills.
A little bit of throwback for sure. You like some of the older metal.
I do. For newer stuff, I'm a huge Avatar fan, so Hail the Apocalypse was certainly an appropriate song for that day too.
It's good stuff, man.
All right. So Jeff, I got a question for you. Throughout this whole kind of draft process, and I guess throughout the whole season covering, what's it like covering both the Browns and the Lions? I feel like there's probably some stark differences between the two.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's changed over the years because I've done it for several years now, and for many, many years, the Lions were the better organization, the better run team, with the better coaching staff, even with some of the questionable coaching staffs that we've had here, and the Browns were a dumpster fire, and that role has definitely changed now. They're doing great. So my background, I'm from Cleveland, but I have been a Lions fan since Billy Sims. My mom had a picture of me when I was 8 years old in a Billy Sims jersey at Christmas. I've been hooked ever since. But Cleveland is my hometown. I want them to do well, but I don't have the emotional attachment for them. But I got to say, I really like their team this year. They've got a lot of guys. I'm a huge Myles Garrett fan. I love the guy. I'm a big Jarvis Landry guy. I'm a big David Njoku guy. So they got a lot of Joel Bitonio is one of my favorite players. So they got a lot of my favorite players that I really like on that team.
Yeah.
So I want them to do well, and I think they're going to be very good. But the role reversal with Detroit, it's been hard. When they traded with one another on Saturday, actually, that was quite tough because they had to write both sides of that trade at the same time. That was a little frustrating. It's easier when they don't have competing needs, and they didn't really have that this year.
Right.
The Browns were sort of looking at wide receiver. They were looking at outside cornerback, which obviously the Lions took as well. But the Lions this was about rebuilding the lines, and they're at a different point in time. The Lions. This is the beginning of a new regime, the very ground level of a process that we hope is going to build into something that's great. Mm-hmm. Cleveland's at the other end of that right now. They went through that in 2017 and 2018, and are in a way it's like a blueprint for me a little bit because I've seen the worst and I've seen how you get out of that. So in a way it makes it easier for me to judge. Okay, well, I don't know if I like the way that this is going in Detroit, or I like that they're modeling themselves after this. And I also have some ties to the Texans, and I saw that team sort of rise and fall and rise and now really fall again. So it's it's interesting. It keeps it fresh. Honestly, it keeps me from if you cover the Detroit Lions 365 days a year, there's going to be a lot of sadness in your life. Not a lot of return on investment for joy. And I don't mean that like to be glib or anything, but it's just the way it is. It's tough to cover a team that doesn't win, and they haven't won in some time, and they were going in the wrong direction. So I'm very pleased at the new direction, but I'm also realistic enough to know that from seeing a team that went 0-16 not too long ago, it takes at least 2 years to get from where they are. Now, the Lions weren't that bad last year. They have more talent than that, but it's a climb, man. So it's kind of a way to keep it balanced. I would love it if they were both good at the same time, but that hasn't really happened in my lifetime.
Sure.
So since you covered both teams, I'm sure you were in the second round. I'm sure you were both very happy that Jeremiah Owusu fell to the Browns, but also a little frustrated that maybe the Lions didn't pick him because he seemed like that was a player right up their alley. It fitted a need. It was someone who it was surprised that fell to them, but he fell pretty far.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he did.
Yeah, my question is in the first and second round. We'll keep it to just those two. What was your favorite pick by a team, and what was your least favorite pick by a team in those 2 rounds?
Yeah, favorite pick. I liked. Who else? What did I like? I liked the Bears moving up for Justin Fields. Honestly, I think that was a brilliant move on their part. I liked Miami taking Jalen Waddle. I think pairing him with Tua. Tua's a guy that needs to play with some confidence, and he didn't play with confidence last year. And now that he's got his guy back with him, and I'm a big Waddle fan. He would have been my choice at wide receiver at 7 over Chase had it come to that. So I like that pick a lot. I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. I think it's going to work out great for him at the NFL level. I begrudgingly give the Bears some credit for making an aggressive move and moving up to go get him. I think it was a great move on their part. So I like that one a lot. That's not so great to hear on a Lions context, but it is what it is. Honestly, the Browns did very well in both rounds, getting Greg Newsome at 26, who they thought was going to be a top 15 pick, and then getting Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who they would have taken at 26, and getting him at 52. He is an instant starter. So their goal is to play a 4-1-6 defense, and he's going to be the one, and it's going to be beautiful.
Okay.
I think it's a great fit for him. To go back to the way that the Lions are. So the Lions, he didn't fit the Lions scheme as well with his size. He's going to play at like 218 to 220 pounds, sort of like a supersized safety. And that role, we don't know what Aaron Glenn's defense is going to look like just yet. But I'm not sure that role is as meaty in Detroit as it is with Cleveland or some other teams. So I get why the Lions would pass on him, why they wouldn't feel like he's a great fit. But yeah, he's a really good football player. His tape, he reminded me of Jabril Peppers at Michigan, actually, in the way that he can play as like the hang linebacker, box safety, edge safety type of role. And I don't think Detroit's going to use that all that much. And I'll say this: they got a guy in Derek Barnes who can do a lot of those things too. A couple rounds later, that I really like.
I was actually going to ask about Derek Barnes just because you know obviously 6 foot tall, 230 something pounds, another guy that's relatively undersized, but more questionable in coverage. I think that's something that JOK provided a little bit more. But I do want to get back to you on Justin Fields, because once again you brought up your love and infatuation with Justin Fields. I do remember seeing the tweet on April 20 at 7:55 p.m. that if you were the GM, you would have drafted Justin Fields at 7 over players like Chase, Waddle, or Sewell. So what drew you to Fields so much over who appears to be like a surefire offensive tackle? And is having the price tag on Goff at the same time as having a cheap rookie deal with Fields that much preferred over a course of like a 3-year rebuild?
Yeah, so the Goff part of the equation is the tough part of the dynamic, because I do want him to get a fair shot at proving that he can or cannot be the long-term quarterback for the Detroit Lions. I have my doubts, but I'm open to him being the solution. This was a guy who was a number 1 overall pick not that long ago. 2016, 2017, he was a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford. That didn't come from out of nowhere. So I'm hopeful, but I also want to have some insurance that the guy that we saw the last couple of years in Los Angeles isn't the guy that we're getting. So I would have gone for Fields. I think he has higher upside. I loved his ability to go through a progression and to read the field and to make the proper decision every time. You just never see him make the wrong read. And he's got the athletic ability. He runs a 4.4. That adds a dimension with his legs where if the play does break down and if his reads aren't working where he's supposed to be, he can take off. I watched a guy like Carson Wentz have a lot of success do that. Andrew Luck was a guy who could do a lot like that. That's the kind of guy that he reminded me of as a quarterback. He's got tremendous accuracy, great downfield accuracy, or one of the best of any prospect that's come out in I've been doing this since 2004. He has one of the 3 best deep balls that I've ever seen. And he's just the ability to get that. And the other thing that I liked about him, this was the guy who coalesced the entire Big Ten to play football. There was, we all watch college football a lot, how divided it was, how some players didn't want to, how some teams didn't want to. Justin Fields was the one guy who's like, you know what, I want to play, and I'm going to get everybody rallied around and organize us and get us to play. That tells me that, hell yeah, he can command an NFL locker room. He can command an NFL huddle. The moment's not going to be too big for him. Being a franchise quarterback will not be too big for him. And I really like that aspect of it, because I think that gets underappreciated with a lot of the top quarterbacks, like Zach Wilson this year. I don't think Zach Wilson's a very good quarterback. I didn't like his tape at BYU all that much. I think New York is going to chew him up and spit him out faster than they did Sam Darnold, because I don't think he can handle that. So I don't have any of those worries at all with Justin Fields.
Yeah. I sort of begrudgingly agree with portions of that as a big Michigan fan, but I get it though. I do get a lot of what you're saying. So I guess getting back maybe towards the Lions a little bit here, where do you feel the Lions missed? I mean, obviously you could say maybe they missed on Justin Fields at 7, but beyond that, where do you feel they missed in this draft? Because I think for the most part, most people are saying this is a pretty darn good draft, especially for first time through with the organization for Brad Holmes.
Yeah, and I think they missed. I don't want to say missed, because I think they chose to rebuild the offensive and defensive lines over prioritizing getting weapons that would have led to more wins early on. Aleem McNeil is going to be great. I love him as a 3rd-round pick. Onwuzurike is a 2nd-rounder. Those two can play next to each other for years, and I think they're both really good. They both got drafted actually behind where I had them in my big board. So I love the players, but they're not the type of positions that you get value out of right away in wins and losses. So if you were expecting the Lions to come out and, we're going to get a number 1 wide receiver, we're going to get a starting safety out of this, which we still desperately need, that would probably be the biggest miss. We didn't necessarily get a lot of the sizzle, but that doesn't seem in every interview that I've heard with both Holmes and Campbell, that's not what they wanted. They wanted to, this wasn't like a quick renovation or a spackle job. They're starting over with a new foundation and building along the lines on that. I get, so I like that. I would have liked to have seen a higher end wide receiver than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it doesn't mean that I don't like him. I think he's a very good value pick where they got him. Yeah, and I see where he can fit into the team, and I love Derek Barnes as the playmaking middle linebacker, which is where he's going to roll. But the safety position, this is still, guys, it's not good.
We got to keep Will Harris off the field as much as possible.
Yes. And so, I mean, like right now, if they want to run a 3 safety look, you're looking at Tracy Walker, Dean Marlowe, and Will Harris or CJ Moore. I mean, that's awful, quite honestly. And I say that I'm a big Tracy Walker fan. I believe he's going to bounce back. I'm a firm believer that he was a victim of bad coaching last year. But he's got to prove it to me too, because he was bad in his own right as well last year. So I would have liked to have seen, instead of taking Jamar Jefferson late, I would have taken a safety or another wide receiver there.
Yeah, I liked Darius Washington a lot there.
That would have been fine. Yes, he's little, but he can play. Absolutely. Yeah. And there was some guys. Yeah, and the fact that they got a couple of undrafted free agents and running backs who are at least comparable with Jefferson, I don't necessarily get drafting that. Maybe I'm jaded because we've drafted so many late round running backs over the past few years, and all of them are gone right away. I just don't like the sunken costs there. So I would have taken. There was quite a few safeties actually that I would have taken late, and they didn't get any of those guys I would have taken as undrafted free agents either. So I'm a little disappointed in that, but you know what? It's year 1. They had limited amount of draft picks. They gave up a little bit of draft capital to go up and get Barnes, which I like. So I'm not going to quibble too much with it.
Agreed.
Yeah, you sound like you were just in the segment we recorded before you joined, because we were all saying the same exact thing, that if we could go back and make a different pick, that was probably one of them where we say, yeah, I don't know why you would draft. Like, it's a 7th round pick, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But
Right.
You're drafting your 4th best, at most your 4th best running back, and there were a lot of other good players that fit a need, a bigger need that were left. But
and he's also not a return guy. And if you're taking a deep running back like that, you would hope that he would return, and he doesn't do that. So
no, it doesn't fit many special teams needs. So on that, we were kind of talking about Onwuzurike and Ali McNeil lining up together. That DT room now has 10 players in it, which seems like a lot. Including that room and kind of some of the other places where they drafted. What players do you see that were contributors or at least on the field a bit last year that are now like on the bubble of the roster on the outside looking in from last year to this coming season?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that's something that we're going to find out a lot about how Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes view what contributions in the past have meant to the team. Because I think Deshaun Hand is on thin ice. I think, honestly, John Penasini, he's not better than Ali McNeil. He was solid for a rookie last season, but he is not the kind of player that McNeil is. And if they're looking for that kind of a nose tackle, Penasini could probably be gone. And I honestly think they could shuffle him off for something in return. I really do. Because the guy can play, but if he's not that guy, it makes sense to get rid of him now. Carry on is always a question, and some of that's because he's hurt a lot. I love Kerryon Johnson. I thought he was a great pick in the 2nd round. I'm a fan, but he's got to stay on the field. Now he's the number 3 running back. So if let's say the Bengals lose their number 3 guy in training camp, and they need somebody. Would I take a 6th round for him? Heck yeah, I would, because I think I think in the long term, he's not going to get a second contract from Detroit just based on where they're at,
right?
And how aggressive they went after Jamal Williams. So if you can get something for that makes sense. The one for me to watch. Go ahead.
I'm right along there with you with Kerryon. I was kind of upset they drafted DeAndre Swift because I was like, oh man, like I really like Kerryon Johnson, even though he dealt with some injuries, but those kind of persisted, and DeAndre Swift showed a lot of promise. So I'm kind of in those words a little bit now, but I still have a spot for Kerryon in my heart.
Yeah, and I was not a huge DeAndre Swift fan, but he quickly won my heart over, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
The guy to really watch is Tyrell Crosby. This was a guy who was a solid starting right tackle last year, but they drafted Penei Sewell. So you've got Decker is a very good left tackle. He's not elite, but he's in that next tier. Sewell's coming in. You've got your starting bookend tackles through 2024. Crosby, will he accept being the swing tackle? Will he want to try to start somewhere else because he's better than some guys that are starting on some other rosters right now, quite frankly, even after the draft? Can they get some value for him on that? Do they feel that good about Matt Nelson, who's making the conversion from defensive end to tackle? And I know he has advocates in the building. So is that something that they're comfortable with? Can they get a guy, off the street this summer who could be that flex guy? I don't know. I wonder what's going to happen with Tyrell Crosby. If I were doing a 53-man roster projection right now, and thankfully I haven't been told that I have to do that yet, he would probably be off it.
Yeah.
So, looking at that, again, ahead at this potential 53-man roster, and you've already mentioned safety, but what position still after the NFL draft appears to be the biggest glaring weakness? Obviously, we just found out again today that tight end number 2, Josh Hill, is retiring. So that looks like another position to fill. It would have been nice to know maybe a little bit. That's another position maybe we could have touched instead of Jamar Jefferson. But, what position kind of stands out to you besides, you said safety, but what other positions about?
Yeah, I mean, tight end certainly sticks out now. It looks like they're signing Darren Fells, which I'm support. I wish he would have stayed here the entire time because they really missed him. That 2018 tight end snafu is just never going to sit well with me. How they got rid of all the good guys and brought in all these bad guys and wonder why it didn't work. Yeah, that was rough. So I welcome Fells back, but they could use help there. Right now, Hawkinson is the only tight end on the team who's ever been active for an NFL game. And for an offense that will run some 2 tight end sets, that's probably not good enough. So that's certainly one to look at. Safety is something where they need to get better. They need to get more depth anyways at that. I would like to see them get another fast linebacker who can run. And if that pushes Jelani Tavai off the roster, gee darn. If that pushes Jalen Reeves-Maybin off the roster, I'm okay with that because he just hasn't. He's never been more than what he was at Tennessee, and that's somewhat frustrating. Now maybe the new coaching staff can bring something out in him that the old coaching staff couldn't. That's certainly a plausible thing with the coaching change that we've had. I mean, I think we're hoping for a lot of coaching bounce for guys like him. But if it doesn't work for him, they got to get a backup in there who can play that, the weak side linebacker and a coverage oriented linebacker. Maybe Sean John Hamilton can be that guy. I was never a huge fan of his, but I mean, I'd tell you what, Dan Campbell really seems to like him. He's brought him up in 3 different press conferences. Probably need to pay attention to that. So, maybe they feel they're okay there. I'd like to see more. I love getting Derek Barnes, but yeah, I would like to see that. And I'm still not content at receiver. I have covered Rashad Perriman. I'm not going to diss him, but I will say this: I will be surprised if he is more than what he was with the Jets last year. And that's not good enough to be your number 1. Tyrell Williams is a perfectly fine number 2. I'm okay with that. But then beyond that, I mean, Amon-Ra is going to get a shot. I hope he can do it. Quintez is going to get a shot. Quintez Cephas from last year. But I would love to see, and maybe Khalif Raymond can be that guy. And I'll admit, I don't know Khalif Raymond's game all that well. I know he's a fast slot guy from Tennessee, and I think he's going to get the return gig as well. But I would love to see a lid-lifting speed wide receiver. And they didn't get that in undrafted free agency either. Jonathan Adams is a brilliant UDFA. He's going to make the team. For everybody who's sad about Kenny Golladay and the contested catches going away, this is your dude. That's what he does. He did that at Arkansas State, where they had really bad quarterback play and nobody to take heat off of him, and he still dominated down there. I really like it. I thought he was going to be a 5th-round pick, so I like that. But I would love to see a true 4-3-5 flyer on the outside who can also not just run deep 9 routes, which is all that Rashad Perriman can do. I would like to see them get better at that. And I'll be honest, backup quarterback, I don't know Tim Boyle well enough to know, but if somebody shakes free, whether it's cuts or injuries or whatever, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing another quarterback into the room to compete with Boyle and Blau.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that backup spot looks a little suspect.
It's pretty bad. So we kind of talked about it a little bit here, talking about some of the undrafted free agents, but what are your thoughts, from a broad perspective, I guess the Lions, and then you can talk about the Browns too, on undrafted free agent signings thus far.
I like where the Lions went. They got 13 guys, and I think 2 or 3 of them can make it. Amos, the safety, has a real shot, I think, at sticking. I think Adams can absolutely stick, and the wide receiver from Notre Dame, I can see him, but I can't think. Thank you. Yes, that's his name.
I like Sage Surratt from Wake Forest too.
Yeah, he's another one. He and McKinley both are guys that if they're healthy, they can make the squad. The problem for them is that they've not been healthy enough. So Surratt is sort of the silky, run 8 to 10 to 12 yard routes. He runs them really well. He catches the ball securely. Doesn't give you a lot beyond that, but he's a quality. He's an NFL type receiver. So yeah, I think they did a pretty good job there. And Rakeem Boyd at running back is another one to watch. He has some real splash moments at Arkansas. He also has some bad moments, but if they can iron that out, and I'll tell you what, I love Anthony Lynn as an offensive coordinator. I love him as a running backs coach, as a former NFL running back, and he's this style that Boyd plays. So I like that one a lot. I think he's going to challenge to make the team too.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry. So out of the draft picks in the undrafted free agents, you said you think a couple of those guys will make the roster. Who do you think out of the draft picks will be your like day one starters? I think we look at the first two picks and probably both of them for sure, but do you see any of the other guys being like on the field snap one, depending on the formation to come out in? But yeah, who do you see being like a starter on this roster?
Yeah, I do. I think Derek Barnes is going to start right away. And actually, I caught an interview today with Dan Campbell on SiriusXM NFL Radio, and he basically said it, that Derek Barnes is going to be given the chance to win the Mike job. And so I loved Barnes this past year at Purdue. He was a guy that I had him on the preseason watch list. And I'm like, okay, this is a guy, 6th, 7th round. He can rush the passer. We've seen him do that. Didn't really fit in coverage. Wasn't necessarily great in like playing in space a lot. And then Purdue asked him to do exactly what he needed to do, what he's good at. Basically playing the old Jared Davis role, except he's smart with the football and the instincts. He knows where he's going. He doesn't guess wrong. He doesn't guess. Yes, yeah, exactly. So I really like I'm very bullish on Derek Barnes as a future starter. Even if he doesn't technically start the game, he's going to play over 50% of the snaps in their defense. So I like that a lot. And I honestly, if St. Brown can prove himself that he has some chemistry with Goff out of the slot, especially early, you can see a lot of him on the field too. So then and Malif Anu is a tough one because he's a better fit at corner for the Patricia scheme than he is for what I think Aaron Glenn is going to run. But that doesn't mean it's not going to work. And especially if they let him play at some of the heavy nickel safety, and I think he can do that. I think he's got a chance to earn quite a bit of playing time too. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's much better of a football player, much more dedicated and astute of a football player than his older brother was, who was just an athlete playing football. I think you see the other side of that with Ifatu, that he's a football player who happens to be a good athlete. So I like that pick. It was a good value pick. That's another guy I thought was going to go in the second, maybe the early third round, and they got him late. So, he might not have the easiest path to the field because again, I like Jeff Okudah. I like Amani Oruwariye, easy for me to say. And I like the acquisition of Quentin Dunbar. So there might not be a spot for him right away, but he was a good pick. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeff, we gave us another great 30 minutes once again. I want everyone to check out your work, managing editor for BrownsWire and LionsWire again, real GM, draft writer. You always provide great insight, great analysis, and definitely look forward to talking to you again about the Lions season coming up for sure.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we have a regime change and the football in Detroit will be fun again. Because God, it was just soul sucking the last couple of years, and I'm ready for that change. I think we all are.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready to see some post game conferences with Dan Campbell. Like Matt Patricia and Jim Caldwell were just not fun to watch, and like Dan Campbell's like edgier seat entertainment. So I'm all about it.
He's a guy that'll also take responsibility for shortcomings. Yeah. Like that's the other thing. Matt Patricia just seemed to blame it on the players all the time. Like them two could do no wrong, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. So. They felt that's why they would reach on Jelani Tavai, and that's why they thought that was a great pick. Like, there's a lot of guys that think they're the smartest guys in the room, and that was Quinn Trisha right there. I think Dan Campbell will own up to mistakes, and I actually feel pretty comfortable with this regime change coming up in the next couple of years for this rebuild.
I'm with you guys. It's going to be fun to watch it, isn't it? I'm ready.
Yeah. Well, let's get talk to you again then here before the regular season kicks off. It'd be nice to get your insight on what to expect.
Absolutely. We'll do that. I would love to join you again. Thanks so much for having me back.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Take care, man.
All right.
After Ben, I totally forgot Ben was the last one to ask